At its peak, the Indus Valley Civilization was nothing short of extraordinary. Spanning more than 1 million square kilometers from modern-day Pakistan deep into northwest India, it boasted meticulously planned urban centers, sophisticated sanitation systems, and abundant agriculture that underpinned centuries of prosperity. Yet despite this astonishing advancement, a subtle but devastating shift began around 2200 BCE. Geological research, including groundbreaking studies led by geologist Liviu Giosan, now shows that monsoon patterns, critical to the civilization's survival, began weakening significantly around this period. The reliable seasonal rains that had nourished crops and filled wells grew progressively weaker, transforming fertile plains into barren landscapes. Imagine the gradual yet relentless drying of fields once lush with barley and wheat. Archaeological excavations reveal granaries increasingly empty, wells gradually abandoned, and settlements slowly shrinking as agriculture became less viable. This sustained drought was no brief inconvenience. It steadily strangled the very foundations of Harappan society. Each year brought more hardship as water scarcity intensified, eroding food security and placing enormous pressure on a civilization whose prosperity depended upon agricultural abundance. As we examine sediment layers from ocean beds and ancient lake basins, the geological evidence now overwhelmingly points to this prolonged period of environmental stress as a fundamental driver behind the decline of this advanced civilization. But how fragile can greatness become when nature itself turns hostile? For the Indus people, the weakening monsoon was not merely a climatic anomaly. It was the beginning of the end. The slow strangulation by drought laid the groundwork for a societal collapse that unfolded gradually yet inexorably. Thus, the remarkable Indus Valley Civilization, despite all its ingenuity and resourcefulness, found itself helplessly bound to the fate of the rains. A sobering reminder even for us today, in a world increasingly at the mercy of shifting climates and unpredictable weather. Yet drought alone was not the sole cause behind the Indus Valley's gradual unraveling. The civilization's survival depended critically on the mighty rivers that sustained hundreds of settlements. Foremost among these waterways was the Ghaggar-Hakra, widely identified with the legendary Sarasvati River described vividly in ancient texts. Cutting across the heartland of Harappan territory, this river was essential, not just for irrigation and drinking water, but as the very lifeline of the civilization's sophisticated agricultural system. However, recent satellite imaging and comprehensive archaeological research have uncovered a dramatic and devastating transformation. Around 1900 BCE, the Ghaggar-Hakra River significantly altered its course and eventually dried up completely. Whether triggered by tectonic shifts deep beneath the earth or exacerbated by changing rainfall patterns linked to climate stress, the result was catastrophic. Without the river's steady flow, once thriving cities like Kalibangan, Banawali, and Ganwariwala rapidly faced crisis. Wells dried up, irrigation channels ran empty, and settlements along the riverbanks, which had flourished uninterrupted for centuries, now faced collapse. The loss of the Ghaggar-Hakra was no mere inconvenience. It was a death blow to entire communities whose very existence depended on its waters. Archaeologists have documented a dramatic and synchronized abandonment of settlements along the river's banks within just a few generations. As populations faced the harsh reality of vanishing resources, they migrated eastward, leaving behind sophisticated urban centers now reduced to ghost towns. Without the river that had once brought life and prosperity, the meticulously maintained urban infrastructure quickly fell into disrepair. Streets grew silent, buildings crumbled, and an eerie quiet descended upon places that once teemed with life. The disappearance of the Ghaggar-Hakra also resonates deeply within historical memory. This vanished river is referenced in later Vedic texts as the Sarasvati, a once great river whose disappearance profoundly influenced South Asian culture and religion. Its loss illustrates starkly how reliant civilizations are on their natural environment, and how quickly stability can collapse when vital resources vanish. The Indus people, masters of city planning and builders of one of history's most impressive civilizations, found themselves helpless as their life-giving rivers betrayed them, leaving only abandoned ruins to speak of their past greatness. The story of the Indus Valley Civilization's decline does not end with ecological hardship and disappearing rivers. It continues with the disintegration of its once vibrant trade networks. At the height of their prosperity, Harappan merchants built a thriving economic empire, reaching as far west as Mesopotamia and the Persian Gulf. Artifacts bearing the distinct Indus script, crafted pottery, intricate beads, and finely worked metals have been unearthed in distant ancient cities like Ur and Sumer, clear evidence of a civilization deeply integrated into international commerce. However, as drought intensified and the Ghaggar-Hakra river vanished, these critical economic arteries began to fail, delivering a crippling blow to Harappan prosperity. Ports like Lothal and Dholavira, bustling hubs of maritime activity and foreign exchange, became increasingly isolated. Fewer ships arrived and trade diminished dramatically, severing lifelines of wealth and cultural exchange. Archaeologists have noted a sharp decline in Indus artifacts discovered in foreign sites after approximately 1900 BCE, a telling sign of collapsing trade. Imagine bustling marketplaces gradually silencing, emptying of both goods and merchants. Workshops previously alive with artisans crafting intricate beads, seals, and ceramics for distant markets stood abandoned. A civilization built on trade faced widespread economic ruin. Without foreign demand, local industries collapsed. Artisans lost their livelihoods and thriving urban economies ground to a halt. The breakdown of trade was not merely economic, it undermined the very social fabric holding Harappan society together. Complex urban centers depended upon these commercial networks for stability and wealth. Once severed, urban infrastructure maintenance ceased, public order deteriorated, and inhabitants abandoned city life entirely. The civilization was now trapped in a vicious cycle. Environmental devastation choked agriculture, river shifts disrupted resources, and trade collapse sealed its fate. Each calamity reinforced the other, culminating in a perfect storm that ultimately dismantled one of the greatest civilizations of the ancient world. For decades, historians debated passionately about whether the Indus Valley Civilization's sudden collapse around 1800 BCE was driven by invasion or peaceful migration. Early 20th century archaeologists believed invading Indo-Aryan warriors swept down from the northwest, destroying cities in their path and scattering the once prosperous populations. Yet, decades of meticulous archaeological excavation at major sites like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro have revealed scant evidence supporting such dramatic violence. The expectation of finding defensive fortifications, caches of weapons, or skeletal trauma from widespread conflict has repeatedly proven elusive. Instead, detailed bioarchaeological studies consistently show a striking absence of warfare-related injuries. This absence challenges traditional assumptions of a violent end. Modern historians, equipped with genetic evidence and advanced dating methods, now propose a subtler yet equally dramatic scenario: a slow, peaceful, and largely voluntary migration prompted by increasingly desperate conditions rather than military conquest. Faced with dwindling water resources, collapsing trade, and spreading agricultural failure, Harappan populations appear to have moved eastward gradually, seeking refuge in smaller rural communities along the Gangetic Plain. Genetic studies reinforce this scenario, indicating a remarkable continuity of populations between the Indus Valley people and subsequent societies. Far from being displaced by conquerors, Harappan families appear to have voluntarily relocated, compelled by environmental desperation rather than external aggression. Yet the peaceful migration theory carries its own profound implications. It suggests a civilization capable of such intricate urban sophistication. Extensive commercial networks and cultural achievement could be undone not by external threats, but by environmental and economic stresses quietly building to catastrophic levels. The Harappans were masters of adaptation, yet even their resourcefulness proved insufficient against the relentless pressures they faced. Thus, rather than a sudden, violent annihilation, the Indus civilization gradually fragmented, quietly dispersing into smaller rural settlements and leaving behind hauntingly silent ruins. A sobering reminder of how even the most powerful civilizations can crumble slowly, almost unnoticed, until it's too late. One of the most haunting puzzles surrounding the Indus Valley Civilization is the sudden and widespread abandonment of its greatest urban centers, leaving behind ghostly relics whose silence continues to captivate archaeologists and historians alike. By approximately 1800 BCE, once thriving metropolises such as Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and Dholavira stood eerily deserted, their meticulously planned streets empty, houses abandoned, and sophisticated drainage systems choked and disused. This abrupt desertion, discovered by archaeologists beginning in the early 20th century, remains one of the most compelling enigmas of ancient history. Unlike other contemporary ancient civilizations such as Mesopotamia, Egypt, or the later Mayan cities whose collapses were marked clearly by warfare, mass epidemics, or sudden catastrophes, Indus cities offer no obvious signs of large-scale violence or dramatic destruction. Instead, detailed excavations reveal unsettling evidence suggesting life stopped suddenly, as though the inhabitants intended but failed to return. Granaries stood partially filled, pottery workshops contained unfinished vessels, and domestic artifacts remained neatly arranged in abandoned homes. What crisis prompted these thriving urban populations to leave their cities forever remains an archaeological puzzle that continues to defy definitive answers. The uniformity and simultaneity of this abandonment across multiple settlements separated by hundreds of kilometers add yet another layer to the mystery. Sites excavated from northern Harappa to the southernmost city of Dholavira demonstrate identical patterns of sudden infrastructure, neglect, cessation of repairs, and swift disappearance of civic authority. Such synchronized abandonment seen across this vast civilization suggests a systemic collapse rather than isolated incidents. While drought, shifting rivers, and collapsing trade networks undoubtedly played their roles, scholars remain puzzled by the scale and apparent coordination of these events. It is this profound mystery, the silent echoes of a civilization abruptly frozen in time, that grips historians and archaeologists alike. Perhaps the most haunting element of this mystery is how completely the Indus Valley Civilization was forgotten. Unlike ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia, whose histories endured through inscriptions and oral tradition, the Indus cities vanished utterly from memory. For thousands of years, Mohenjo-daro and Harappa lay buried beneath layers of sediment, unknown and forgotten by the very descendants of those who built them. Only their accidental rediscovery by archaeologists in the 1920s revived their story, prompting a wave of fascination that continues to this day. And among the greatest mysteries these rediscoveries posed was the Indus script, a sophisticated written language present on thousands of seals and tablets, yet stubbornly undeciphered despite decades of scholarly effort. This enduring enigma heightens the intrigue, tantalizing historians with messages from the past that we can see but cannot read. As we confront these hauntingly empty ruins today, the cities of the Indus Valley ask a powerful and unanswered question. How could a civilization so advanced, prosperous, and expansive vanish without leaving behind a single clear explanation, not even a whisper in historical memory? The deserted streets, crumbling bricks, and enigmatic script remain silent witnesses, offering clues but no definitive answers to one of humanity's most intriguing puzzles. Though the great cities of the Indus Valley eventually succumbed to abandonment and decay, the culture and legacy of the Harappan people did not vanish entirely. Instead, key elements of Harappan civilization persisted, quietly adapting and evolving as populations moved eastward into smaller, rural communities scattered across the plains of the Ganges and the foothills of the Himalayas. While the advanced urban planning, complex sewer systems and mysterious written script did indeed disappear completely, the spirit and ingenuity of the Indus people survived, preserved in subtle yet enduring ways. Agricultural methods developed over centuries, such as crop rotation and water management techniques, continued to be practiced in the smaller settlements where the Harappans resettled. Archaeological excavations have repeatedly uncovered striking cultural continuities, pottery styles, jewelry motifs, and metallurgical practices used long after the great urban centers vanished. Modern genetic research reinforces this remarkable continuity, revealing a direct ancestral link between the Harappan people and contemporary populations living in northwestern India and Pakistan today. This provides powerful evidence of cultural survival, challenging the assumption that the collapse of urban centers meant the extinction of the civilization itself. Even more compelling is the way Harappan traditions subtly shaped the religious and cultural heritage of South Asia for centuries afterward. Symbols found carved into pottery fragments from post-Harappan villages closely resemble earlier Harappan artifacts, hinting at shared rituals and belief systems that endured, quietly preserved across generations. The echoes of the vanished Ghaggar-Hakra river, known in later Vedic literature as the Sarasvati, carried forward through ancient Hindu texts, preserving its memory as a sacred but mysteriously lost river. This continuity shows a civilization whose physical structures disappeared, but whose cultural DNA continued to inform and shape the societies that followed. Thus, while the great urban centers lay abandoned, their legacy did not entirely vanish. Instead, the Harappan people's ingenuity, resilience, and adaptability allowed their cultural identity to persist in subtler, enduring ways. They did not vanish, they transformed, passing quietly into new forms of existence. It is within these quieter, subtler continuities of agriculture, craft, genetics, and myth that the true legacy of the Indus Valley Civilization lives on, reminding us that even when cities fall, cultures endure, invisibly woven into the fabric of the future. The fate of the Indus Valley Civilization, once among humanity's greatest urban societies, is far more than an archaeological curiosity. It presents a profound warning to our modern world. Like the Harappans, contemporary society thrives on interconnected global trade networks, complex urban infrastructure, and stable climates. Yet, as we witness intensifying climate crises across the globe, the parallels between ancient and modern vulnerabilities become alarmingly clear. The meticulous geological and archaeological studies that revealed the ancient Indus's vulnerability to drought and river shifts hold a stark mirror to the present-day realities faced by billions worldwide. Today, many of our largest cities, from Mumbai and Karachi to London and Los Angeles, are similarly dependent upon resources and climate conditions once considered inexhaustible, but now alarmingly uncertain. Rivers such as the Colorado in the United States or the Ganges in India, once powerful and dependable, have become strained by drought, declining snowfall, and shifting rainfall patterns. International scientific assessments warn of water scarcity, crop failures, and forced migrations, echoing the fate of ancient Indus cities that suffered profoundly as their environment changed. The Indus civilization's story, once perceived as a remote and academic curiosity, now feels deeply prescient and urgent. The ultimate lesson from the Indus Valley is a sobering one. No civilization, however advanced, is immune to ecological collapse. Today's megacities from Mumbai to London rely heavily on vulnerable supply chains, threatened increasingly by extreme weather events and disrupted trade. When the Indus cities lost their economic lifelines, rivers, monsoons, and trade, they descended into decline swiftly and silently. Modern cities, much larger and more interconnected, risk even greater disruption from similar events. Yet, unlike the Harappans, we possess the advantage of knowledge and foresight. History provides us a warning, but it also grants us the chance to act. The forgotten cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro are no longer just ruins. They represent a call to action, urging us to heed the lessons of the past before it is too late. The Indus Valley Civilization collapsed because of interconnected stresses they neither anticipated nor adequately addressed. Our modern world must learn from their cautionary tale. Resilience requires adaptability, sustainable resource management, and global cooperation. If we fail to absorb these lessons, we risk repeating history, turning thriving modern metropolises into tomorrow's ghost towns. The silent ruins of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro serve not only as archaeological wonders but as timeless warnings, a poignant reminder that our civilization's future, like theirs, depends entirely upon respecting the fragile balance between human achievement and the natural world.